Qualitative Data Collection Methods by Joe Gregory. When collecting qualitative data, there are three different methods that can be used, depending on the type of data you're collecting. These methods are interviews, observations, and questionnaires. Interviews are used to gather information from participants, usually in a one-on-one situation, but a group interview can occur. Structured interviews are where the questions are written out by the researcher beforehand, and they must keep to these questions strictly. This can be good as the questions are structured, meaning they can be analysed more easily and the researcher knows what they're going to ask, so they can be more relaxed. However, a rapport may not be built with the participant, as they haven't spoken to them on a personal level, so they may feel less trust towards the researcher or more nervous. The questions may be personal, and this can be difficult for the researcher to ask, as well as for the participant to answer, as as they haven't spoken on a personal level. As they haven't spoken on a personal level previous to this. Unstructured interviews are where the researcher has a slight idea of what they're going to ask, but the questions are mainly asked from the answers given by the participant. This can be good because the interview can be directed in different ways depending on the answers given. This allows the researcher to investigate different answers and get a deeper insight into the participants' thoughts. Another positive is that the researcher may find out something that they weren't expecting to, and the unstructured questions allow the researcher to dig deeper into what he feels necessary. A disadvantage to this method is that the researcher can manipulate the questions to receive certain answers, even without intention. This is bad as it makes the test invalid. The researcher may also forget an important question if the interview heads down a different direction to the one they thought it might, but again, this depends on the answers given. Semi-structured interviews are a mix between unstructured and structured. Some questions are structured and some are not. This is beneficial as it means that the researcher can get the best of both different types. They have questions planned, but can also be spontaneous if the opportunity arises. However, it is easy to go off topic, which can lead to answers being received that aren't wanted. Focus groups is a form of interview with a group of participants instead of just one. An advantage of this can be that many different opinions can be collated at once, which is less time consuming than individually interviewing 5 people. A disadvantage to focus groups is that if a dominant character is in the group, if a dominant character is in the group that is being interviewed, then others who may who may have better answers to the questions than that dominant person tend to shy away in case the answers are considered less credible, which can limit results. Participant observation is where the researcher is actively involved in the topic that they're researching. Data is recorded in the form of field notes, with the researcher recording their own thoughts, feelings, opinions, emotions, and experiences. This form of research is useful when attempting to discover delicate aspects of group behavior that can be difficult to see from the outside. An example of participant observation would be if a researcher joined a gymnastic club to partake in trainings and talk to the gymnasts to gain an insight into the eating habits that they possess. Non-participant observation involves the researcher observing from the outside. There is no interaction between the researcher and the participant or the activity being observed. Observational checklists and field notes are methods usually used to record data. Checklists are used more in quantitative research or in qualitative when observing simple forms of data. An example of where non-participant observation is used would be if recording the number of injuries obtained in a gymnastic training session. The researcher would go to the training sessions without the gymnasts knowing he was there and would watch what happens, how many injuries occur, what types they were, and would record the results on a data recording sheet. One advantage of observations is that participants are in their natural setting. The researcher will have no effect on their normal conditions. A disadvantage is that the Hawthorne effect may occur. This is where the subject knows they are being researched and acts differently because of this. This can invalidate the whole project, so the researcher must be careful how they approach this research. Questionnaires are a form of research used to collate data. They are usually sent out either by the post or electronically, but can be administered in a different environment, such as accompanied by an interview. One advantage to questionnaires are that they are cheap to produce, particularly when done online and sent via emails, for example. The answers are usually easier to analyse as the questions are all the same, and some questions will be closed, with only a selection of answers available. More honesty is usually given with questionnaires, as the majority of the time the researcher isn't present, meaning less pressure is felt by the participant, and the questionnaires can often be answered anonymously. However, the questions may not be understood by the participant, and due to the researcher not being there, no clarity is available, so the question may be answered wrongly or not at all, or not answered at all. Issues with wording may occur, and the P may misread and be led to a different answer because the wording may seem biased, which, once again, can't be clarified due to the researcher not being present. Although more honesty is often given, there is no way to tell if the participant is being honest or not, which could lead to less reliable results.